Sacrifice, and I want to mostly thank you for reminding me it was April 15th. I forgot completely about the tax day.
Yeah, right.
My name is Jim Leaman, as Blaine mentioned. I'm just an average citizen like you guys. I'm a co-organizer of the We Surround Them group with Steve and Mark and Joshua. And I'm a proud member of Frederick County now for 12 years, a proud American, born and raised here, and quite happy about it. Happy to be here today. I've been asked to talk about the accomplishments of this movement over the last year, but before I do, I think it's important to provide a little bit of context and a little bit of background about how we sort of came together and what this is all about. Just lay the groundwork a little bit. It was about a year ago, as Blaine mentioned, and maybe even go back about a year and a half ago, when the country first started to become aware. I think we went through a transformation, and I'm not talking about the transformation that you hear about in Washington right now of America. I'm talking about the transformation of the majority of American people, the transformation where we woke up from this long nap that we'd been in, this period of complacency and ignorance and just assuming that things would work out because this is America, and we suddenly started to realize that things had evolved over a period of time, and we didn't recognize our government any longer. And what was worse, our government wasn't recognizing us any longer. And we started to become aware. We started to become aware of things like this, the U.S. Constitution. We started to learn about what the Constitution said about our government, and the fact that the Constitution really doesn't talk about powers we're granting to the federal government. It talks about limiting the powers of the federal government and controlling the federal government, that the power really belongs to the states, and it belongs to everybody out here. It belongs to the people. And as we became more and more aware, and as we became more and more educated on really what our country and our government was supposed to look like, we became more and more angry. And more we were looking for places to go. And we realized if you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter if you look back to your party and you're true to the founders' principles, the Democratic Party wasn't supporting those. If you're a Republican, it didn't matter.
Why is it every time we have one of these, a black helicopter shows up?
My name's Blaine Young.
You might need 100 pounds.
But it didn't matter. We looked back and we said, all right, the Democrats are in charge here, but the Democrats didn't do this. The Republicans were just as guilty, the independents, and whatever party label you wanted to put on it, everybody was guilty. And it didn't just happen, it happened over decades. So we went back to our parties and we said, we're not happy with the way things are going. And we found out that we were being ignored. We found out that the party, as Ronald Reagan once said, left us. And we needed a place to go. We needed to be with like-minded people. And we found out we're not alone. We found out that the majority of the American people think exactly like we do, and that the majority of American people wanted to make a difference and bring us back to what the founders intended our government to look like. So a simple phrase was uttered a year ago, Tea Party. Simple two-word phrase, and it started a movement. It started a movement that began with the Tea Party and began with people looking to get together with folks, and it evolved into other things. The 9/12 Project, the 10th Amendment Center has gained power, the We Surround Them group here in Frederick has started to exercise influence, and over that past year we've accomplished a lot. So let me cut to the quick and talk about just some of the things that we've been able to accomplish as we become more and more of a force to reckon with. It's been alluded to a couple of times, but I can't emphasize enough how millions and millions of Americans have become educated on what our founding principles are all about, and the things that we never learned in school, and the things that our children are not learning in school today about what our government's supposed to look like. And for the first time in their lives, millions of Americans are getting up off their couches, and they're going out and they're doing things like we're doing here today. We're letting our voices be heard. I think we did something wonderful, if not impossible, as well. We got the legislators to learn about the Constitution, and I would guarantee you that the vast majority, I'll bet my next tax payment, that the majority of the folks that are representing you, and I use that word in quotes, in Washington or in Annapolis or here in this county in some cases, have never heard of Article 1, Section 8 and don't know how that just defines the limited powers of our federal government and how they've exceeded that so much. We partnered with the National Center for Constitutional Studies, and we held a great seminar, a full-day seminar on the Constitution to educate people over here at the Holiday Inn. And we'll be doing it again in partnership with the We Surround Them group. The National Center for Constitutional Studies has a mission to educate people so that we can use that as a weapon to challenge our legislators. We made our voices louder by writing letters to the Frederick News Post and the Baltimore Sun, by writing articles and getting them published. We made our voices heard by writing to our legislators and demanding that they be held accountable, demanding that they answer our questions. We helped people run for office. We got people involved to the point where they said, I'm ready to get involved, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hold true to the principles of the founders, and I'm going to get involved. And we have people like Scott Gunther who said, I'm going to go out and run. Something that largely went unnoticed in the public, and I think is very important, we introduced sovereignty legislation. In Maryland, state sovereignty legislation was introduced with the help of Alex Mooney, Mark, and Joshua. They launched an effort to get that done, and they got it introduced down in the Senate and the House in Annapolis, and I think that's terrific. Unfortunately, it's gathering dust down there, so don't let it go. Contact folks and tell them you want to be heard on that. And we organize groups like this to help us stay in the fight and help us make sure that we remember that we're in the majority. And a couple of closing thoughts. I think the thing that goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because that's my habit, is we learn about the arrogance of government. We learn about an arrogance of a government that won't listen to its people. We learn about the arrogance of the government that Blaine mentioned that lets 47% of its people not pay taxes, and the other 53% pay for that 47%. That's not America. And we learned that that was happening, and we're doggone mad about it. A government that preaches fiscal responsibility to us as individual citizens, yet spends like a drunken sailor with no sense of how that's going to be paid by us, by our children, by our grandchildren, and how they're bankrupting the country. We learn about the arrogance of a government that takes God out of our discussions when we talk about government. God was part of the creation of this nation. The Creator gives us our inalienable rights. It doesn't come from government, it comes from the Creator, and our founding documents state that clearly. So don't think this is going to be a short battle. Don't think that this is going to take a generation or more. But just remember to stay involved, because we're here today because we want to be involved. We're here today because we want to make a difference. And we're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be here next week. We're going to be here next month. And we're going to be here in November to set this country back on the right track. Thank you, and God bless America.